Well, I'm Allison, and I've taught with Elliot. I taught with Elliot, started teaching plant spirit medicine in 2002, and taught with him uh, until basically he passed away. So I'm now teaching it. There are other teachers around the country who teach different styles of plant spirit medicine or who learned from Elliot and took it in different directions, all wonderful teachers. Uh, and what we do here is I stay very true to the way that Elliot rediscovered and implemented plant spirit medicine. So that's a little my background. Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica De La O. I am the administrator at Blue Deer Center for Plant Spirit Medicine. So I've probably communicated with many of you on email. Glad you could make it today.
Okay, well, I'm going to start. We'll have people joining us, but I just want to start with, just a little bit about plant spirit medicine. I feel incredibly lucky that this is something that found me in my life. And I took the course and started training with Elliot. And actually, I got in touch with him in 1996. So it's almost been 30 years. And it, we were often told when we took the class that the class does us while we do it. And we didn't really realize what that meant, but I found that to be completely true. Through participating in the class and going to the different weeks, it's like my worldview changed, or, some of the constructs, I guess you could say, that I had adopted that really weren't who I was started to fall away. And my senses opened up. And so I started to experience life very differently without even really knowing it. It just sort of happened. But the richness of the teachings and the time around the fire and, just all the things where we got to create this environment where we could live a little differently for each of those weeks. And they built upon each other, and I found out that my life was greatly enriched from it. We often talk about our worldview changing, and I would say that that's absolutely true. How I viewed the world and interacted with it and listened to it and, became a part of my environment was substantially altered in a very good way. So I feel really lucky that this medicine found me. And I'm going to say it found me. Somebody was talking about the telepathy tapes. It may have been Abby. And there's a lot of talk these days about plant consciousness. But 30 years ago, there was very little talk about plant consciousness. As a matter of fact, when I started my practice, people didn't have any idea of, they were like, plant spirits? Well, can it help me? And I'd say, yeah. And so they'd try it out, but they didn't, it was a very foreign concept of plant spirit medicine. That's very different today. So I think that some of you have probably heard me tell this story before, but when I read I read a magazine article about Elliot, and I had a 2-month-old son, and I was extremely sleep deprived because he wasn't a good speaker. But I read this article and I thought, I've got to do that. And then I put the magazine down and I promptly forgot about it. I was in that survival state, if anybody has been a new parent before, where you're not getting much sleep. But a couple days later, I walked into our local it's it was our local market. It was called Wellspring, and they had a book section. And for some reason, I walked right into the book section, and I looked up, and there was this book sticking out from all of the others. And I'm like, oh, why is that book sticking out? I better look at it. So I went over to it, and it said Plant Spirit Medicine. And I said, oh, this is for me. And so it was just like 1, 2. I climbed on the ladder, I took it out, I put it in my cart, And I took it home and I stayed up all night reading it. It really spoke to me. So I wrote to Elliot the next day and said I was interested in courses. And about 3 months later, I got this little mimeograph form back that was cockeyed and everything. And he told me that he was doing a couple of classes in the Northeast. So I called the person. She says, "Oh, no, no, I'm so sorry." I called the person in Virginia. She said, "No, no, I'm so sorry. The class is full." And I said, "Well, can I be put on a waiting list?" And she said, "Oh, no, nobody's going to cancel. We're not taking a waiting list." And so I said, "Okay." So then I called the woman in the Northeast, and she said, "Oh, we're full, but we're starting another class in New York." She said, "If you want to, if you want to be on the waiting list, or if you want to come, that would be great." And so then I started to talk to her about the fact that I had a young son, and and how was that going to work, and should I bring someone to class with me? And anyway, she all of a sudden said, "Wait, where are you from?" And I said, "Chapel Hill, North Carolina." She said, "You're the second person today who's called me from Chapel Hill. Would you like to organize a class there?" And I said, "Well, maybe." She said, "Tell you what, I'll have Elliot call you." So I hung up and I thought, yeah, right, you know. But about 3 or 4 days later, I picked up the phone and there was this man who said, "Hello, I'm Elliot Cowan. I understand you want to organize a class." And I said, "Well, maybe. What's involved?" And so we talked about it a little bit. And he said, "Tell you what, you just think about it." But I said, "Well, I have one question." I said, "Why? You don't even know me. Why would you want me to organize a class for you?" And he said, "I have a really good feeling about it." So I said, "Okay." So I hung up, and then I thought, oh my gosh, this is like a no-brainer. I mean, I have childcare for my son. We can organize it here. I don't have to travel. And so I started the process of trying to call him back, and it took over a month to get in touch with him. And but I did, and we set up a class. And about a year and a half later, I started a class here, and that's where I did my training. So he would come every 2 to 3 months for a year, and we learned all the theory. And then he would come, at that point in time, he would come back every 6 months and we would do clinical work. We started, we had to pass these exams to practice, and then we started to practice, and he'd come back and do clinical work with us to hone our skills. So I always feel like the plants called me. But what was really interesting to me is that it must have been 5 years into my practice. I picked up an old journal and I read about this guided meditation that I had done 10 years previous. It was 1986 instead of 96. And I'd done this guided meditation where a friend of mine took us through, and we'd never done one before. And it was about finding your gifts, and you took a sack and you climbed up this mountain and you went to this place that was supposed to be part of your purpose. And I ended up in the mountains with this field of wildflowers, and the flowers were everywhere. And then you open the package, and then there's a box, and you open the box. And I had written this all down in great detail. And in the box, this pair of hands came out, these golden hands, and said, "You'll use your hands for healing." And I didn't really know what to make of it, so I just wrote it down and tucked it away. And then I realized that there were some other clues that the plants were calling me 10 years before, and telling me that this was going to be my direction. They knew what was coming down the pike for me, even if I didn't know. And I find that repeatedly with the plants. I find that the plants who come visit me know, or who I make a relationship with and use in my practice, they know who's going to need that later. And so they make themselves, available to me so that I have that medicine when I need it. And plants are, I just love them. I just love them. I've spent the last 29 years having a practice and probably teaching for the last since 2002. And I have to say that it's been incredibly rewarding to be of service in healing work and helping people come back to their own balance, find their own paths, and heal in many ways. Um, I do want to tell, just a couple of stories and then we'll open it up to questions. But I remember in my first year, we were always told that, the class is one thing, but where the real learning happens is when you start practicing. And I found that to be true. So, sometime in my first year, the first couple months, uh, every practitioner was worried about, am I getting the pulses right? Am I picking the right medicine? Am I assessing what the person needs correctly? And getting comfortable with all the protocols and, being able to see and hear and listen. But then it was probably 4 or 5 months, 6 months into my practice, a woman came to me and she had stage 4 breast cancer and she was 29 years old. And which was very rare back then, it's not as rare now. She had been given 6 months to live and she had 2 months left. So she wanted to know if there was anything that the plants could do. Well, we had been well trained that you're not going to make any promises about anything. But I promised her that what I would do is do everything I could to see if there was something that could help her. And so we started a healing relationship. And she lived 9 years. She lived, and they were 9 good years. And she knew it was from the plants. The plant, over the 9 years, she went into remission twice. And it came back, she was able to resolve the issues that had probably brought about the cancer in the first place, but she was able to come to peace and resolve the things that were unresolved in her life. And she was able to spend time with her kids, which was something that she really wanted. So for at least the first year, she would go and get chemo and radiation. And she would leave there. She'd come to my office and she could barely get out of the car and get into the office. And I'd give her treatment and she'd be like, oh, this is great. And so I learned that the plants have a tremendous amount to offer. So not only were they able to, I believe, help the chemo work, it was like take away the effects that weren't good for her, but allow what was good about it to work. They worked in beautiful combination. And like I say, then she was able to stop that. And she had a really good 9 years. And I just thank the plants for that, because it was a beautiful introduction into their possibilities. And but like I say, it wasn't only the fact that she got the physical help. It was that she got the emotional help, that she felt like she was back on track with her life and she was able to resolve things and live very vibrantly. So when the time came 9 years later, she knew it was time and she was at peace with it. She said, my time's come. She settled things with her kids and she passed on. And I'm very grateful to her because she was a wonderful person. And so I wanted to tell that story. And I'm sorry that Zoom is not the best format. Like, we're not in person with each other and you can't really ask questions. And but I will just continue talking. So the other, when I was thinking about, well, what stories would I like to tell? I had this also young man actually, his grandmother called me and asked if I might be able to help him because he had had some severe infection in his large intestine and colon and had to have part of it removed and some operations, and for a while he had to have a bag, and then once everything healed they were able to stitch his intestines back together. But he was never quite right afterwards, and he had to stop work. I mean, he healed very well, but he developed these symptoms where he would throw up all the time and he couldn't work, and he got very weak. And I said, well, I'll give it a shot. I said, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's something that I can help him with because the plants always provide help, but whether it's going to be the healing that he wants, we'll have to see. So he came in, and after the first treatment, he said he's come back regularly. He said that he hasn't thrown up since. He's regained his strength. He feels like everything was put back in alignment. So the surgery that he had to have was, the plants helped him get back to who he was and get his systems working again. Um, so so I've told you two stories that involve Western medicine as well as alternative medicine and how they can work well together. But there's oodles of stories of people who, come and they don't even have any physical problem, but they receive benefit. So I thought I would just start out with those stories and open the floor up so you can ask questions. I know there were some questions specifically about the course and what it was going to entail, but why don't we open it up to you? And you can either raise your hand like that, or you can just unmute yourself and start talking. And if you have experiences yourself you'd like to share, please feel free.
There's also a way that you can raise your hand at the bottom, where it's a react. And if you click on react, it'll give you the hand to raise that way too.
Any questions? Any questions about the course?
Yeah, I was, oh, Helene might want to, she can go first.
Okay, Helene?
Yep. Once we finish this year, or however long it takes, what happens next? And if you don't go up to New York and do the on-site training, what happens to those people that don't do that?
Well, there's really no, there's if one wants to continue and practice in this way, you really would have to do the course. So um, it's not possible to teach this course via Zoom. There's a lot of experience and hands-on experience, and there's a lot that involves opening the senses and learning how to see and feel, and it also is incredibly helpful to study with a group of people because their questions will teach everybody. Everybody's questions help the whole group. And, so if someone's having difficulty with one aspect of the course, it's probably likely other people are, or they haven't realized that they do yet. So there's, learning in person is really essential. So I wish I could say it was differently, but at this point, there's not a lot we can offer in the way of teaching you to be a healer online.
Well, what if your end goal is not to be a healer, but simply to get closer to nature? Like that certainly is what's happening for me. I
Yeah.
mean, unbelievable, but I'm not sure I want to be a healer.
Okay, well, that's why. So when I took the course, it was all one course. You took it from start to finish. But we've divided it into three sections now. There's the online course, which is an introduction. So, participants can get their feet wet and see if this is something that calls to them. Level two, which is 2 weeks, we're going to have a class in June and a class in September. That is to learn more and work with the plants more and learn more about how to listen to them and the language of the plants and basically some theory, the theory of how energy works and how you can detect it and see it and how that's helpful for the plants and people. So you would do that online. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You would do that in person, and it's 2 weeks. And then if you did not want to be a healer, you would just stop there. It's complete in and of itself. And so a lot of people will only take that portion because they want to use the teachings. I mean, that's not a great way of saying it, but they want to have the benefit of the teachings because they apply to a lot of different aspects of life, and they'll take it into their profession or just to get closer to nature, like you say.
So I can say that even though I'm not sure, and it may end up that I don't want to be a healer, that taking the second tier of the course is very, very beneficial to even exploring nature, getting closer to nature.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's exactly why we divided it, because a lot of people don't want to learn all the protocols, or a lot of people don't know until they reach a
Mhm.
certain point, and then they think, oh, I really want to do this. So it allows for both options. But yes, you will get closer to nature without
Okay.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you get the hand down?
I don't know. I think you press it again, or I
Let
don't.
me see. I'm going to do it.
Yes.
Oh, it says lower hand. I see.
Right. I think it was Perry. You had a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm currently studying herbalism as well as plant communication, and I was curious about your practice or instruction of pulse reading and how that plays into the education.
Pulse reading is absolutely a part of it. So we teach how to read the pulses in the 5 element way, as opposed to the 8 principle or the TCM. So it's the 5 element way of reading the pulses. We don't go into the pulses in level two because if people aren't interested in becoming a healer, they don't really need to learn that. So, but if somebody is sure that they want to take level three, we start right off level three with the pulses, because it takes quite a while actually to learn them, and one would need to practice that entire period of time to become proficient. We actually, that is the homework that is probably the most uh, consistent and sometimes vexing for people, is we ask people to take 10 pulses a day for 5 days a week, um, to really waken up the fingers and start to feel the energy and start to be able to, there's different phases, like, in the beginning it's just feeling, and each time we meet we'll add more onto it, so by the time the course is done, a person can be proficient at reading the energy of the pulses. So, and what that does is, and I apologize for those who've heard me say this before, but everything is worth repeating. But what the pulses do is they both tell us what the plants have done that we delivered to the person, and they also tell us what still needs to be done. So the pulses are a great way of, it's a checks and balance system. And you can tell a lot from the pulses. You know, the more and more proficient anyone gets at reading them, the more you can tell about the person without them even saying anything. However, talking is a big part of a treatment, having people share what's going on with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Allison, there's two hands.
Oh, sorry, Abby. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. I guess I'm going back to what Helene was saying, and I'm asking when when you would be having your level 1 repeated. And the other question I have is, have you considered doing some of this training on the West Coast?
Well, yeah, I can answer both of those. Level 1 is the online course. So so we ask that everybody who starts level 2 has completed the online course. So have you taken the online course yet?
No, I have not. And so it's one that's available at all anytime, is that
It's
right?
available anytime. Jessica, could you put it in the chat?
I see it now. I've got another window open with your.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, so you could take that at any time. There's 13 sections to it. We call them modules. And you'll finish one module and then you'll go to the next. And it gives a basic overview of how we practice plant spirit medicine.
And can you repeat the
The modules?
sessions
Yeah, yes.
so you can and
Yeah, once you buy it, you have it for life.
Okay, and where is the? I'm just trying to see if there's a. I am assuming there's a course, so I don't know. I mean, a cost to it, and I don't see.
It's very, very inexpensive.
Oh, I see it. Okay, it's $147. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it is very inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't even want to know how much it costs to make it. It's
I
very
can't.
inexpensive.
I'm sure it is very
They wanted
expensive.
to, Blue Deer Center wanted to make it accessible to anyone.
Well, this is wonderful. So I could do that, and then after that, I could look into whether I wanted to make the commitment to go forward onto level 2.
Correct.
Okay, and then
Correct. And then as far
the
as
other.
the West, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you were about to answer it. Sorry.
As far as the West Coast goes, I'm certainly open to doing a course in the West. Right now, I think we're working on having the course in the East. You know, fill up or whatever, or but I could absolutely. I mean, if you want to get in touch with me, we can absolutely work on a course in the West. We've taught before in California, several areas. We've taught the course in Southern California. We've taught the course in the Santa Cruz area. We've taught the course. I guess not the full course. I guess those are the two places. We've taught it in Colorado and Utah.
In Santa Barbara in California.
What? I'm sorry?
In Santa Barbara in California.
Okay, Santa Barbara as well. Yes.
And I'm curious because obviously where you are located, the plant life, and Jessica knows this for a fact. I live in the high desert of Oregon, and so it's quite different plants here than where you would be teaching it. And I'm thinking that it would make sense to be doing it with the indigenous plants that are
Well,
here.
that's a really excellent observation and question. And what we do is there are plants that grow all over the United States and actually Europe as well. For Hannah, I think it was, is from Belgium. So we choose plants that are universally
Oh,
located. So when we work with the plants, we're going to work with ones that are not particular to a certain area. We're going to, and so then you'll have what you need to go back to your area, and those plants will grow there so you can use them, but you will also have what you need to get to know the local plants.
And you said that this meeting, well, I see that this meeting is being recorded, so I could offer my daughter-in-law is an herbalist, and I have a farm, and she raises herbal medicine plants right now, and I think she would be as well interested in this. So,
Yeah, you could share it with her, absolutely.
okay, great.
Yeah, no problem with that. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Marion? You're muted, sorry. I was muted too.
All right.
Yeah, you're muted, Marion. Yeah. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Um, so I haven't yet finished the first course, and I started it probably more than a year ago. And I kind of got stopped on, I think, module 5 was during the journey, which was great because when we met, um, on I think the very first community, we went through that journey together, which was really great. And I thought I would get back to it. And then, I mean, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I start a lot of things and then just don't ever complete them.
Yeah.
And yet I'm very attracted to this and I keep circling around it.
Yeah, I personally, I find online courses, no matter how much I'm interested
Hard.
in them, very difficult
Yeah, me
to,
too.
um, unless it's the one time that it worked really well for me, it was facilitated. So we watched a video, and then a week later we met, and then we watched, and then we met. And it was online, it was during COVID, and that was, other people are very good at that. I'm not. We were just asked if you wanted to move forward that you do just complete them. And then there's a reason, there's a goal.
Yeah, yeah. And I have worked with somebody, and it was because there was nobody in my area. It was long distance. And I don't know how they do the pulses. Maybe you teach that in the third section, that they would do the pulses on themselves, possibly.
No, for people who do long distance work, it's not exactly plant spirit medicine, but it's long distance healing, and they use the plants, but they
Okay.
don't use the pulses. They have a different accounting system or a different verification system. So there are people who do go through the course who it becomes clear that the pulses are not their way. It's a very, very small minority of people, but it becomes clear. And so then we start them on what's called the non pulse method. And, if that were true for you, we would get you started on the non pulse method.
What's nice about it is that it makes it available, you know, to people who don't have a practitioner anywhere nearby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When you can't see someone face to face. And so then the second class is that it's 2 weeks. It's a two
Mm-hmm.
week duration, and is it 2 consecutive weeks? So
They're
you're at the center for 2 weeks.
You are, but one of the weeks is in. It's actually a 6 day week. We bumped it down from 7 just to make it a little easier. But it's one week in late June and one week in late September, so they're not consecutive weeks.
Oh,
So
okay, great. But they're not like so close where you kind of bounce back if you don't live anywhere nearby.
correct. And
Okay.
what we would ask is for, what we would try our absolute best for those who don't have local practitioners to do treatments during the class. I mean, not off hours, so that
Mm-hmm.
you have an experience of what it's like to be treated in person.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Joshua?
Hello. So I have a couple of questions. First question is centered around phase three. Um, so there's no information up on the website at all about phase three, about like
Oh,
when it would be running or what the cost would be, et cetera, what's actually covered. I assume that just means you're just trying to get phase one and phase two out to people and get people through that. And I assume that's probably for 27.
it would be. So here's if we do it at the when we do working at the Blue Deer Center, it would be 27. Thank you for bringing that to my attention because we need to get something up about that. But the weather has become problematic in the winter now for travel. So I think the earliest we could probably start a class is April, and not have people get stuck. But we typically, the best season for the Blue Deer Center is really May through the end of October. Those are really good months, but we can stretch it out and do April to December. But what we're trying to avoid is people getting stuck with snow and ice and winter travel.
So
So we, but yeah, thank you. We should start that, but I would love to start that as maybe we'd have to find a way to see if we could start that in March, because you want to build on what you've just learned, and yeah, I'll talk to Jessica about that afterwards, and we'll see if we can get that worked out.
Okay. Next part of that is, would that be structured as like two non-consecutive weeks again, or would that be
Correct.
more of an? Oh, okay.
But it would be more than 2 weeks. So I believe, because we'll also have to have some clinical weeks. So I believe there's 2 more weeks of theory and then there's a couple weeks of clinical. So, so your level 2 will teach all the theory. When you get into level 3, it's the nuts and bolts. So, for example, one thing that we do when we see people is we want to make sure there aren't any blocks to treatment. Because if there's something else going on with them that's going to block the treatment, it doesn't matter what we do. We could use the best plants in the world. We could be spot on with our diagnosis, but it's not going to help. It's not going to get through to them. So we'll spend time learning exactly how to clear those blocks and make sure they aren't there, which is not something we do in level 2. So level 2 will address, we'll talk about the theory of it, but level 3 is the how to. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess my only other question is purely practical, and that is the level two courses are about $3,000 each week. The level three you're talking about several weeks, is that also $3,000 a week?
You know, if at this point, yes, because of room and board and housing. When we last things have jumped tremendously, and I have to say that the cost of room and board is pretty equal, if not more than the cost of tuition. And yeah, it's very hard these days. We've looked at ways to try to get grants and scholarships going, but we have not been successful in creating a scholarship fund. So that's just the raw nuts and bolts. And yeah, the last it's been that way for a while. So the last time we taught in person was pre-COVID, and it was pretty much cost that at that point.
So I definitely I'm interested in following through all the way to becoming a practitioner, but am I looking at like 25 to $30,000 for all like three phases?
More like 20, I would say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But hey, if anybody knows anyone that wants to start a scholarship fund, we would love that. If you know anybody that wants to invest in plants, because we can earmark something and we can use it just for that, to provide scholarships. I'm just putting that out there because the reality of finances is really it's a problem. It's a problem, and we don't want this medicine to be for those who only for those who have a lot of money hanging around, and at the same time, we still have to pay our caterer. We still have to pay the, you know, everybody.
Yeah, no, I know. My question mainly just centered around, I've devoted the last couple of years of my life to trying to do this as personal growth work. And, that type of money is
Yeah,
hard to do to get trained.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just want to sympathize because that's yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Marion.
So I'm curious as to since I worked with somebody and it was all very energetic.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, is the training and this healing practice mostly energetic, or is there like a tangible component with it?
Mm.
Like using the plants in terms of teas and tinctures and that kind of thing, or is it like fully energetic?
It's energetic in that sense.
Okay.
That's not what we would call it, but we call it the spirit. Um, so,
Okay.
there's a
Because in
lot of
the
energy medicines out there right now, but we actually work on calling upon the spirit of the plant to touch the spirit of the person. So we don't give teas or pills or supplements, and you'll find out what it does through taking the pulses, or you can even look at the person a lot of times, and
Mm.
you can see what the effect has been.
Okay, and the reason that I'm asking too is because in the first level video, many of the shamans that were speaking, we're talking about using the plants, like how they would use the plants in terms of ingesting them.
Yes, all of them. Well, do you remember one in particular, like Sophia?
Yeah, there was a woman. There was I don't know if she was from Peru or there's an indigenous woman,
Yeah, she was Mayan. She's actually from
Mayan.
Mexico. And she is both an herbalist, but, well, so I studied with a man named Don Lucio in Mexico for
Hmm.
quite a while. And we asked him once, we said, hey, what about the spirit of the plant? Because he'd say, go get this plant and, you know, boil it. And he said, what do you mean about the spirit of the plant? And we said, well, are you using it? And he said, how could you avoid not using the spirit of the plant? How could you think that you're not talking to the spirit? And so it's very obvious to them, what the plant is telling them. They listen very carefully and they have a communication with the plants. So the spirit is foremost in whatever they do, even if they use the body of the plant. But they will also use energetic. So, did I explain that right?
Yeah, yeah, you did. Yeah.
Okay.
And then like so it is a very expensive commitment.
Yeah.
It's definitely, something to think about. And I'm just wondering if at the end of this, is there a lot of like conversation about setting up a practice and, how to kind of get that started?
There is. There is. And there's also an association, where the association is, their purpose is to help practitioners.
Hmm.
So yes, there's a lot of talk about that. For some people, it's very easy to start a practice, and for some people, it's not. I would say that probably one of the keys that is to, are you good at talking to people? and and saying what you do. Because if a person, I think that that's how the word gets spread. Somebody says, what do you do? And we
Mm.
talk a lot about how to talk about this medicine, so it's not that, but you as a practitioner would still need to open the door or be able to talk to people when the door's been open. So
Yeah.
if it, so I think that would be, looking back for me, I think that would be a defining ingredient. Is I talked to everybody about what I did, and I had a lot of enthusiasm for it, and I was interested in them, and I was interested in the plant spirit medicine, and I was interested in them. And so I think that goes a long ways. I've never advertised. We do now have a website, and once in a while somebody will call from the website. But my entire practice has been word of mouth, and or except for those few exceptions of people who have called from the website.
Hmm.
And we did not have computers when I started practicing. It was when I advertised the class to set up a class here in North Carolina, I put flyers up all over town, and gave talks. It was just a completely different way of doing things.
Mm.
So so we were always taught that word of mouth was the best advertisement. And so if you work well with one client, they're going to tell others. And so those are the two ingredients that I would say helped me. Is that my clients would refer people, and I talked to everyone about it. And but just because I was excited about it, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate your candor on discussing the tuition. Uh, because that's always a sticky point, like
Yeah.
people get uncomfortable. So I just appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll just put out there that if anybody, any of you here or anybody listening to this video, if you have ideas about other ways that we can make this more accessible, I'm all ears. If we can find a way to make it work for everybody, I would love that.
Can they help you grow back teeth? Because I might divert the funds going toward the implants to this.
I would not count on that.
Yeah.
There is a principle in nature when things have gone to a certain point, they're not going to reverse. That's so.
Asking. Thanks.
But I mean, we could, there's all sorts of things. If people really want to take the course and money is the obstacle, well, let's get together on a call and brainstorm. You
Well,
know?
I just love how, when I decide to do something, the way just opens up. That's the first thing. I just have to make the decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yes. Helene? Oh, you're muted. You're still muted.
I just want to clarify something. So there are two separate 1 week courses next in this, like in April and September.
June and September,
Yeah,
yes.
June and September, and each course is each week is like $3,000.
I believe it's 3,200, but yes.
Well, whatever, but
Yeah,
it's double for 2 weeks. So that means two round trip airfares also.
correct.
And then getting up to Blue Deer. Okay.
Correct. One thing we would like, we always like to try to help is when people are coming in from afar, if there are people who are driving by airports, if they'll pick them up, or, we like to try to coordinate that.
Okay.
And, or, sharing a car or sharing a pickup. if there's a way that we can coordinate, we
Yeah,
will
yeah.
absolutely do that because the closest airport is Albany Airport, and it's an hour and a half away from the Blue Deer Center. So unless one's driving, um, there is still transportation from the airport.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just do all the full disclosure now, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that 3,200 was for 2 weeks, and I thought the 2 weeks were together. So this
No.
clarifies it.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's I have to say that the Blue Deer Center is an absolutely wonderful, stunning place. It has probably I'm not going to remember now, but it was 96 acres, and the variety of plant life is stunning. And the buildings, it's been around for a while. It has a river that runs through it, but it's an incredible place to learn plant spirit medicine, both to study and time with the plant, different elements. So there are benefits just from being on the land. It's really wonderful land. And having taught, so I started teaching in 2002, and probably for the first 10 years, we went around to different areas and taught there. So we've taught in Europe, we've taught in England, we've taught in Australia, we've taught in California, in Utah, and Colorado, and North Carolina, several courses, and New York, and probably several other places that I'm not remembering right
Canada,
now.
did you all go to Canada?
Canada, yeah, we've taught in Canada, and Mexico as well. Um, and all of the places had benefits, and the Blue Deer Center does add something very special. So,
Okay, thank
right,
you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, anything else? Any other questions, comments, suggestions? I always apologize for the format of Zoom. I am an in-person person and do my best on video. So,
You don't have to apologize. I read Eliot's book probably for the first time in, I don't know, 2007. And I've so wanted to study with him. But I had just gotten out of grad school for art and had a boatload of student debt. And it was just interesting that it was like, I wanted degree number two, but it wasn't in the cards.
mhm.
And with COVID, everything went online, and so many things have opened up since then. Maybe one little benefit of that era. And so I really appreciate your ability to be able to reach out via Zoom for an info session like this.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, if there's not anything else, we can end today's meeting, but I just want to make the offer again. If you're really interested and you want to brainstorm about money and different ways of making this work, I'm open to all ways of looking at it. We don't have work study and we don't have scholarships, but if we can figure out a way to get those, that would be great. But again, just shoot me an email. I think Jessica put my email in the chat, and we'll just set up another call. Okay, Joshua, I think your hand was raised. You're muted.
You had basically answered my question. I'll just message you on email because I know I had asked about tuition before, and yeah, about like maybe camping because I'm used to going and doing primitive skills events and teaching for weeks on end, and just
Yeah.
camping and eating oatmeal for 3 meals a day.
Yeah, unfortunately, until the caterer has a minimum, and until, I don't, the meals, I don't know what we could do about, but I do believe they do have a camping option. Is that correct, Jessica? Yeah. I think that so the Blue Deer Center, New York has a lot of hoops that you have to go through to get approved for certain things, and they have been approved for camping. So I think there are several, yeah. So that is an option. And if you want to know logistically, like what that cuts off, you can contact Jessica, because I actually don't know that answer.
Okay, sounds great. Appreciate it. I
Yeah.
hate to keep talking purely about finances when we're talking about such a really cool thing, but I also want to leverage being able to do it.
No, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if finances weren't an issue, a whole lot of people would be interested. So if we can find, I mean, there's a whole lot of people interested now. I didn't quite say that right, but it would open the doors for many other people. So if we can find a way, let's find a way. Let's see if we can put some intention on it and see what can manifest, right? We can ask the plants for help. Anyway, we can get on a call and come up with a plan.